Spoiler warning for Xenoblade 2. Don't watch this video until you beat the game, unless you don't care about spoilers. All the Xenoblade games have beautiful areas in them. Personally, I prefer the areas in the first game, but Xenoblade 2 definitely has some great locations as well. And in this video, I'll be ranking all of them. According to the area map, there are 12 titans, and if we count Torna from the DLC, we have 13 in total. They will all be ranked on how fun they are to explore, how much there is to do in them, how good they look, and how good the music is in them, in my opinion of course. Alright, let's get into it. Number 13, Indol. Oh, this is definitely one of the areas in the game. Look, there's not much to say about this area. I get it. It becomes inaccessible later on, so the developers didn't want to put too many things in here that you can permanently miss. But that just makes this place feel pointless. Indol has like only 7 side quests, and there's nothing to do here otherwise. I can admit that it has some nice scenery and very fitting music, but you barely get to enjoy it because you have no incentive to come back here after chapter 6. Indol is just the very definition of style over substance. Number 12, the Spirit Crucible. Yeah, this place sucks. I do think it's really cool that your normal blades are heavily nerfed here. Nice to see the story actually impact the gameplay. With that said, however, it just makes this area more stressful. Fighting here is already hard enough, which sucks because there are so many places where you can get gangbanged by like 10 different enemies. There are also some branching pathways, which is nice for exploration, but many people think the area is confusing to navigate because of it. That said, there are a few positives. The music is really soothing, and unlike Indol, you actually have reasons to come back here, thanks to more than 7 side quests. Aside from that, the best thing I can say about the Spirit Crucible is that it's not as bad as some people say. The mandatory field skill checks can all be cleared with story blades, and I personally had no trouble finding the right way. But all of that still doesn't change how frustrating this area can be on a first playthrough. When you suck the fun out of even the battles, you know you messed up. Number 11, Cliffs of Morafa. This place is not offensively bad or anything, but I just don't remember enjoying it much either. Funnily enough, it has the same 2 issues that I hear almost everyone complain about with the Spirit Crucible. That being annoying field skill checks and the place being confusing to navigate. Nobody ever decided to build stairs here, so if you want to reach a higher point, you always have to make a big detour to eventually drop down from an even higher spot. You'll often need field skills to do this, and they just suck in general, but I especially hate ones that are put on vines. You can't access the menu while you're climbing, so if you didn't have the right skills ready, you have to drop down to change your party, then climb back, and then once you're done climbing, you'll probably have to change your party again since you put together some blades that are bad at fighting. This is literally just HMs from Pokemon, but worse. Who approved this? And can the music calm down? Jesus Christ! At least it doesn't take that long to get through this place, but it's still tedious and the map doesn't help you find your way. The only reasons it's not all the way at the bottom is because unlike Indol, there's actual stuff to do here, and unlike the Spirit's Crucible, the battling is actually fun here, if only thanks to the battle theme still move forwards. Number 10, Temperentia. This titan is what the Cliffs of Morafa would have been if it was less annoying and largely optional. I wouldn't blame anyone if they didn't know this area was more than just a boss area. The main story brings you here to fight Jin, and from that point onward, it never asks you to come back to explore all of this outside of side quests. There's some really cool stuff here too, like the strongest super boss which you need a million field skills for. See Morafa? This is how you should use the Pokemon HMs correctly. Not to annoy players just trying to progress in the story, but to lock post-game stuff from them. Temperentia could have easily been in the same boat as the previous few areas, but I like it more because of its content and the novelty of it being optional. Number 9, Argentum. It's an interesting first area at least. I still think it's a bit weird that the first major area in 2 is basically a big shopping district, but it kinda makes sense as Rex is just a traveling salvager. Seeing as it's an inhabited area, there's not much fighting to be done here, but Argentum makes up for it by having lots of useful shops and a good amount of side quests. Let me also just add that the night music is simply beautiful. This place does what it needs to do. It's not up there with the best areas, but it never tried to be anything more than it is. I also want to add that at the beginning of the game, there is a sunken ship that you investigate with Jin and Malos, which is classified as a part of Argentum. Gameplay wise it's nothing special, but I just wanted to say that the music here is amazing and that it's a crime that you only hear it in a part of the game that lasts 20 minutes. Number 8. The Land of Morifa. Ah yes, when Xenoblade 2 decided to rip off The Last of Us. This place just gets cooler the more you think about it. There's all this talk about how Morifa is the birthplace of the architect, and after looking for a while, you can find some remains of a destroyed Earth. Alongside that, you have some other chilling things, like the Goldo zombies or the remains of the Torn Titan. The music here isn't really a banger, but it definitely fits the atmosphere. It's a really interesting place, and there's even a little bit of exploring you can do here, which I do appreciate. It's a cool place to think about, but once I got everything I needed here, I didn't want to revisit it nearly as much as most other areas. Number 7. The World Tree. The first time I played the game, I thought it was really cool that the tree, something you'd associate with nature, turned out to be mechanical from the inside. That little twist is a cool start to what's basically the final dungeon of the game. The music here is also great. It really makes you feel like you've come so far and that you're in the final stretch of your biggest venture. I really like the parts where you go outside of the tree and get a good view of Alrest, but you spend most of the time here inside the place. It doesn't look so interesting once you get over the surprise. It's just a bunch of metal walls where you can get jump scared by motorcycles. Also, it just keeps going and going and going. It's good to drive the point home of how big and important this tree is, but you spent all of chapters 8 and 9 climbing the tree, while chapter 10 is entirely spent at the top of said tree. Oh, also, I grouped the low orbit station together with the World Tree on this ranking. Did anyone else forget this place existed? Because I sure did. Yeah, the low orbit station is counted as a separate area on the map screen, but it's basically just the top of the World Tree where you only spent the last hour of the game. I actually love the plot twist that Elysium is all barren now, and the battle theme against these gargoyles is really underrated. But that's all I have to say about the space station. All in all, I love these areas conceptually, but on a gameplay level, they left a lot to be desired. Number 6, Mor Ardain. Yup, here we go, that's my hot take for this video. Let me just say, out of all areas, this one definitely has the best music. That said, Mor Ardain just had a few too many annoying moments. There's this whole abandoned house for example, which is just a pain to get through. You can actually avoid this place altogether in the story if you find a gate key in a secret area. But 1, said area is also really cryptic to find, and 2, the alternative route is filled with level 80 enemies. So have fun getting a heart attack every 5 seconds. Mor Ardain also loses points for its visuals. It doesn't look that interesting to begin with and gets uglier over time as these purple particles start to appear after the final chapters. I don't want to be too negative however. I do respect this place for experimenting with different means of transportation, and like I said, I do love the music in both the field and the town areas. That also reminds me, this is the first Titan on this ranking that consists out of notable sub-areas, aka Alba Kavanagh and the Blade Factory. Alba Kavanagh is a decent town area with good music, but the Blade Factory just sucks. And no, it's the clips of Morifa music again! The factory is confusing and aggravating to get through. If I ranked it separately, it would have been all the way at the bottom of this list. Still, I didn't let the factory drag down Mor Ardain too much on this list. The music in every other part is still amazing, and it's great that the game gives you multiple options to reach that factory. Still, Mor Ardain could have had less confusing navigation, better looking environments, and no annoying factory. Number 5, Gormat. Aside from the main fields, this area has 2 noteworthy sub-areas. The Deep Woods you end up in after chapter 1, and the city Torigov. The Deep Woods have their own unique music, which I do like, but it's almost never accessible because of the cloud sea levels. Yeah, remember that game mechanic? It can be a small annoyance in other parts of Gormat, but it's nothing that major. Torigov is also a nice town area. I'm not the biggest fan of the day theme, but I love the night music. There's also just a lot to climb on top of and a whole farming field where you can do a bunch of things as well. The main field area is just amazing though. They especially did a lot with the trees in this area. There are many routes to climb on and giant hollowed out tree trunks to go inside it. There really is a lot of exploration to do here. Both the day and night music from the main game is amazing, but the remix we got in the Torna DLC is just godlike, and it really makes me wish we visited more titans in Torna. With great music, lots of things to do, and level 80 gorillas, Gormod definitely deserves a high spot. Number 4, Uriah. This area is just breathtaking. The cherry blossom trees make for a gorgeous background, and together with the music, it is sure to make a strong first impression. The area is also really open-ended, but maybe a bit too much for its own good. I've seen so many people get lost when they were trying to find their way to Fonsamaima. These staircases are a lie! No, of course you don't have to use them. You have to go past 10 million enemies on a random path to use a field skill to drain a pond so you can crawl under a gate. Duh! I think the biggest problems with this area are that, and the fact that the swimming can get annoying sometimes. For the rest, it's rock solid. I also think both Garfon's village and Fonsamaima deserve some credit. The music in Garfon's really makes you feel like you're at home, and it's a cool base for your mer group. Fonsamaima on the other hand has really calming night music, while also having some fun exploration elements like letting you go on top of its roofs or down the water slide stair thingies. Aside from being a bit too confusing on the first run and having a bit too much water overall, there really isn't anything bad I can say about this titan. Number 3, Tantal. I loved Valak Mountain from Xenoblade 1, so I got really excited when I got to Tantal for the first time. It didn't quite leave the same impact on me, but it was still amazing. With a few exceptions, I don't think there are many eye-catching areas in 2, but most areas compensate with incredible music. Most day themes sound very energetic, while the night themes give us a chill version of those same songs. And of course, both songs in Tantal sound great as well. Zeke's homeland is also great when it comes to exploration. There are many secrets to be found and many ice ramps to be jumped off. On my first playthrough, I do remember having a lot of trouble with finding my way to Tantal's lower level, but honestly, it doesn't look so bad nowadays. It's way more straightforward than I remember, and you even have some opportunities to jump down some levels to speed up the process. Fiaswar is also an interesting town area in the story, as it's basically an isolated black market, though it's just okay on a gameplay level. Still, Tantal is amazing, and it was one of the most memorable areas for me. Number 2, Lefteria. This titan went under my radar for a really long time. I guess it's probably because you don't need to spend a lot of time here in the main story. If you want, you can easily make a beeline from the beginning to Fonset and then to the Indo port. I think that's one of the best parts of this area, however. It's massive, but it's also pretty easy to traverse. You don't need to spend 2 hours figuring out how to get to the story objective. And instead, you can just spend as much time as you want here. Wow, making a player feel like they're not stuck in an area will make them like that area more. Who would have guessed? The music here is less exciting and instead just really relaxing. It almost makes you feel like you're in some kind of tropical resort area. And then there's also Fonset Village. It really feels like a place to call home, and considering that Rex grew up here, it makes complete sense that he's such a good and optimistic boy. Lefteria is great, but then there's number 1, Torna. This one might be a bit unfair. Torna is basically the only titan in the DLC campaign, so they made it much bigger and more varied than all other titans. Because it's in the DLC, there are also a few quality of life gameplay changes, but I won't count them in favor of Torna. That said, it still managed to come out on top. At the beginning of the DLC, we start out in the Lasaria region, which is basically your standard forest with some catchy music. Just like all the upcoming areas in Torna, it's relatively small but densely packed with content. The Aletta region is where it starts to get more interesting. There's just a nice mix of greenery, sand and water here. I also just love Aletta's music. I'm especially a big sucker for the jazzy night version of this song. The third part of this titan is a desert, and wow, they actually managed to make it interesting. It uses the same music as Aletta, which is definitely not a bad thing, and it has many memorable set pieces alongside it. Things that come to mind are the dunes you can slide down on, the many spider holes, and the breathtaking secret area. After crossing the desert, you then arrive at the heart of Torna, Oresco. It's all around just a really comfy town, and it's actually about as big as most of the other city areas in 2. This is probably where you'll spend most of your time in the DLC, as you're forced to do side quests, and Oresco has a lot of them. But at least the day and night music here sounds very relaxing. Then there's technically one last area with the interior of the Titan, but it's basically just the final dungeon. It's a bit forgettable, but at least the battles here last long enough so that you can finally get to hear all of the Torna battle theme, which is another plus. Yes, most of this Titan consists out of grasslands or sands, but that's not a bad thing in my opinion. Yes, on paper these are very generic world themes, but on a gameplay level Torna is still very fun to walk around on, and overall it still looks great. You can say it's a bit unfair to compare Torna to the Titans of the base game, and honestly, it might be. If you think this shouldn't count, then you can just see Lefteria as my number 1, but I want to give this place the credit it deserves. Torna is by far my favorite Titan in Xenoblade 2. There really isn't any other place I enjoyed as much as this one. Now then, since I'm a YouTuber, this is the part of the video where I ask you to leave a comment with what your favorite Titans are, because more comments and likes will make this video do better in the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to see more videos like this, feel free to subscribe as well. Thank you very much for watching. This has been Sellout Max, signing out.